Resident Evil, a series I have loved for many years at this point. It is a franchise I personally hold deep in my heart. It is something that I have loved and adored for decades now. Well, not really decades. I can't really say that, but about a decade and a half at this point. I've only been playing Resident Evil since roughly around about 2006, 2007, but at the same time, it's a series that I have played not only every entry in, but certain entries like the original RE2, 3, RE2 Remake, RE7, Resident Evil 5, no matter how ridiculous it is, and even Revelations 2. These are games that I have played time and time again. I've played all of the mainline entries, and I am really begging for Code Veronica to be the next official remake in Capcom's series of remakes of this franchise. But at the same time, Resident Evil is a series I hold close to my heart and is one I have loved for many years at this point. And now that there are 4 official Resident Evil remakes at our disposal, I figured it is time for me to rank them. I recently played all of Resident Evil 4, and although I haven't done a review, it is something I want to do in a different fashion rather than a general, one-off review, because I don't feel like I can formulate my thoughts entirely when it comes to Resident Evil 4 Remake, as the original is not only my favorite video game of all time, but I initially was admittedly a little biased towards Resident Evil 4 Remake. But having now played through the game roughly around about 4 or 5 times while going for my Platinum trophy and only being a handful of trophies off, I actually love this game. I am so happy with how Resi 4 Remake turned out, and I have loved most of the remakes. There are 4 of them out there for us right now: Resident Evil 2 Remake, 3 Remake, and 4 Remake, and I am here today to rank all of them. Where does each game land on my ranking? Well, let's find out. There are 4 of these now, and I'm going to go through them one by one from worst to best as these lists normally go. And starting off at number 4, we have Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now, this game came out at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and only roughly 12 months after the release of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Resident Evil 2 Remake was a massive success both commercially and critically, while Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was something that a lot of people were divided on. It's not a game that I hate by any means. I think on a technical scale, this game is beautifully made. It looks gorgeous, controls incredibly well. The inventory system from RE2 Remake being brought over, which is very simplistic and easy to get a hold of, is great. I think that the dodge mechanic for Jill is amazing and very easy to get the hang of, even on the hardest difficulty being Inferno. This is a game that I think is fine. I don't think it's a bad game in the slightest. I don't think any of these games are bad when it comes to the Resident Evil remakes. I think that the heart and the passion is definitely there. My biggest problem with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Remake is a lot of issues regarding, 1, Nemesis. Nemesis in the original Resident Evil 3 was something that one feared. He could appear at any moment, like Mr. X, the Tyrant, in Resident Evil 2. He was a terrifying force to be reckoned with. I was really hoping, even though I'm not usually a big fan of these type of enemies in video games, a stalker type. Mr. X was a foe to be reckoned with in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I was really hoping that Nemesis would be the exact same, given the exact same treatment. But at the same time, although Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Remake has a coherency about it regarding its narrative being only Jill's storyline and one portion being Carlos Oliveira, at the same time I can't forgive a lot of its shortcomings regarding the narrative as well, being Nemesis only appears in scripted sections. Therefore, I never really feared him, and all the scripted moments that you encounter him with are in locations that you can at points revisit. So I just made a beeline for each location to have him fuck off, and then I just re-explore those locations later to grab resources and manage my items. He really wasn't that terrifying when you think about it. And need I mention, the dodge mechanic makes it very easy to avoid him even on the higher difficulties. There's also the certain sections from the original that were imperative, of which were completely removed. Don't get me wrong, I love the Hunter Gammas and the Hunter Betas returning in this and their reworks and design. I think that the Hunter Betas in particular are terrifying, the Hunter Gammas being massive and huge creatures this time around that were genuinely terrifying, and staying away from them when you know that they are a one-hit enemy, that if you get hit by them once, you're just going to be swallowed whole. It is terrifying, especially once again on higher difficulties. But the problem is, having the grave diggers removed, the entire graveyard section as a matter of fact being completely negated and removed, the multiple endings that were at the end of Resident Evil 3, the entire clock tower section being removed, although, it is kind of there, like you can see it fucking there, but the section itself, the exploration, the puzzle, which was very iconic in the original Resident Evil 3, completely removed, feels like a massive disservice. Need I mention as well, I paid $100 for this game on release, to then beat it in under 5 hours. Are you kidding me? Asking $100 for a game of which only has roughly 5 hours of playtime is ridiculous. And I was able to beat this game in under an hour on subsequent playthroughs while going for my platinum trophy. I played a lot of this game. I have a lot of hours on it while going through my platinum, but nothing compared to others because it doesn't have that one, replayability factor behind it, and two, it as a whole is very short and very easy to speed through. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis has a lot going for it, but at the same time, it has a lot of issues and is not by any means a great game, but not a bad game by any means either. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Resident Evil 2 Remake. I love this game. I think it is great. Everything regarding the location and the atmosphere of the Raccoon City Police Department to the underground parking garage, seeing Kendo's guns and everything, like that was awesome. And then going into the sewer section and everything with the IVs, seeing Lickers remastered in such a way with the remake was so beautiful. Mr. Rex, on my first couple playthroughs, was a force to be reckoned with. As I said previously, he is terrifying. I think the narrative for the most part, depending on if you do the Claire A to Leon B scenario or the Leon A to Claire B scenario, works really well. I think on a technical and visual scale, it works really well, and it is really hard to move around some of these enemies sometimes, especially when there are sometimes hordes of enemies. Like, one of my favorite things to do was the 4th Survivor game mode with Hunk, and I tell you what, getting through that was a pain in the butt. It took some major trial and error, and I love that. Going through and getting my S ranks on every single difficulty, whether it was assisted, standard, hardcore, was amazing. This is an incredibly replayable game, and a lot of that is due to the atmosphere, the resource management and everything. Like, it is very finite when it comes to resources and recovery items. At times I genuinely struggle even to this day because I don't like to, even though I've got the bonus weapons there for the unlimited RPG and all that sort of crap, I don't like going through the game in that way. Hell, I've gone through the game knife only. I've also done a run where I've beaten the game without killing any enemies or bosses. Yes, this is in fact possible on the Claire A scenario. It is a ton of fun to do challenges for this game. But at the same time, my biggest issue with RE2 Remake is the fact that the story sort of contradicts itself whether you're playing the A or the B scenario for whether it's Leon or Claire. It doesn't really matter. Not only is there only a handful of interactions between Claire and Leon throughout the entire story, which feels like a massive disservice to these characters and the story from the original, but at the same time, events just unfold and repeat themselves whether you're on the A or B scenario. The same helicopter crash, the same caved-in ceiling from William Birkin, the same locations with the same puzzles, slightly aside from the chess puzzle, the same solutions, everything. You still have to do the same crap. And therefore, I wonder, so what is the deal, as a matter of fact, when it comes to beating these games and having a coherent story between the two? Because the official story finale and final boss is found in the B campaign, meaning you have to play through the game a second time to get the official true ending. But what is the point of that if the story for the most part in the B campaign is largely the same? I have some major problems when it comes to this in RE2 Remake. It doesn't feel like it has any coherency behind the two stories whatsoever, even though they're told from two perspectives in two different scenarios. I don't know, there are just these little moments here and there that don't separate the two stories enough for them to feel like their own separate things. It's a gorgeous game that plays beautifully, it is tense, it is horrifying, it is incredibly atmospheric, but at the same time the coherency behind the story just doesn't mesh up between the two scenarios, and that is the game's biggest problem. Need I mention Mr. X just isn't that terrifying on replays. I kind of like to walk and have him as my buddy because even if you're walking, you just won't catch her. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Resident Evil 4 Remake. Resident Evil 4 Remake is the latest entry in the Resident Evil series, as well as the latest remake to be brought to us by Capcom within the iconic series. This is a game that initially on my first playthrough I was very skeptical of and was admittedly biased, as to this day, even after playing Resident Evil 4 Remake, not necessarily because it's a better game, but Resident Evil 4 is my favorite video game of all time. I've adored this game since the first time I played it. I play it at least once a month. I adore this game. It is so perfect in every way, with a few silly moments like what I call the Looney Tunes Castle of Horrors with the laser corridor, the pendulums, and, you know, Salazar's statue. We don't talk about those sections. But at the same time, RE4 has such a charm about it, but this intense nature blending action, survival horror, beautifully well. It blends so well together, it is uncanny. Resident Evil 4 Remake on my first playthrough I had fun with, but I didn't love. I had a lot of issues with the U3 being removed as well as the JJs being removed, but not necessarily removed, but more reskins. Like, that's all they are. These little pig fuckers, I don't know what they're called, but they're more just reskins of the JJs from Resident Evil 4. But at the same time, on subsequent replays going for my platinum, I truly grew to appreciate and adore Resident Evil 4 Remake. This is what a remake should be and what all remakes could be if the passion and the love is behind such a story and it isn't attempting to necessarily be a remake but more a reimagining. Resident Evil 4 Remake does everything it should do and more. Enemies are tense, the locations feel nicely reworked, that it doesn't separate itself from the original too much but gives itself its own identity in the meantime as well. Resident Evil 4 is still a game that exists, and this game does not try to take away the love or the existence of the original by any means. It has new sections that aren't in the original while taking out old sections as well, such as the U3 fight and the Looney Tunes Castle of Horrors, as I said, which I would prefer the U3 to be in it still, but at the same time, I'm not too disappointed in it overall because it was a very jarring boss fight, but was one that I've always enjoyed doing. RE4 Remake, though, is beautiful. This game on PS5 is fucking stunning. I can't preface that enough. This game looks absolutely ridiculous on the hardware that we have at our disposal. Whether you're playing on PC, whether you're playing on Xbox, whether you're playing on PlayStation, this game looks insane. I do still have a bit of issues in regards to the controls, I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, the movement speed and the controls and latency behind it. I don't know, am I the only one that's noticed this? It feels a little flimsy and irresponsive at times, but at the same time, like, everything reworked for the story, everything reworked for enemies regarding their animations, regarding their actions and how they move, how they attack, is all really nicely done. I admittedly do have a few issues with RE4 Remake, which I'll mainly get into in my Platinum video that will be coming very soon, hopefully. I'm so close to earning my Platinum, it's not even funny. I think the boss fights, aside from Salazar, are way too easy. I found myself beating the game in no time whatsoever. Like, my first playthrough was less than 11 hours. Like, what the hell? But at the same time, I genuinely think that Resident Evil 4 Remake is a beautiful game. It's a masterpiece. I still have issues with how Ashley controls in this game, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm so glad that I've now unlocked her armor after my professional playthrough, because thank fuck. Her being incapacitated and then having to pick her up is a little fucking annoying, I'm not gonna lie. And the whole, you know, her being incapacitated and having to go pick her up in the middle of a fucking fight while she's also trying to be taken away, or one hit away from being fucking killed, is a little bit more annoying in my opinion than the whole, you know, do I heal her here? Do I not heal her here? Do I heal myself or heal her? Or do I save it for a moment where I might need it more, or do it now and risk not having those resources for later? I love that system because it was a risk and reward system that either punished or rewarded the player for being strategic in certain sections of the game. But at the same time, here that's just completely thrown out the window for what I feel personally is a much more annoying mechanic. I like her solo section with the knights a lot more in this one than I do in the Resident Evil 4, you know, the OG. Like, I think her OG section is very frustrating and very annoying, but here I think it is reworked beautifully with the right sense of atmosphere, tension, horror, and puzzle solving. Yeah, that's one thing. The puzzles in this game are great. I love the puzzles in this game. RE2 and RE3 Remake were very absent-minded when it came to puzzles. Like, there were a couple, but not many. But RE4 Remake has quite a few of them, and they're all very solid puzzles. They encourage you to look around the environment, they encourage you to solve things on the fly, or to rotate things for way too fucking long. I think RE4 Remake is a great fucking game that I have progressively fallen more in love with and appreciated more and more. There was admittedly a little bit of bias on my first playthrough, but with subsequent replays, I have fallen in love with this game over and over again. And coming in at number 1 is going to be the original Resident Evil Remake, released for the GameCube in 2002. The original Resident Evil is a milestone in gaming and survival horror. I've talked about it on the channel before here on Critics Play Games over on my Platinum Experience video for Resident Evil HD. I have Platinum this game, yes, that included being the game on invisible enemy mode and using, you know, well, knife only. At the same time though, the game is insane and is what I would call the perfect remake. It's better than the original 1996 game tenfold. It adds new shit like Lisa Trevor and the Crimson Heads that are so fucking scary, it's not even funny. I love the fact that every time I revisit that game, I am terrified whether to burn a zombie after I've killed it, or do I leave a room and come back and risk it coming back harder and faster and more terrifying than ever before as a Crimson Head. And this can sometimes be hours later. Lisa Trevor is a terrifying fucking enemy that will stalk you in certain moments of the game. Yes, they are scripted like in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, but her moments are very memorable, and they are moments that if you take the wrong path, you could be completely fucked over by her. The difficulty levels from easy to survivor to real survival mode is a ton of fun to deal with and a ton of fun to go through. It really does trust the player to strategize how they're going. I still play Resident Evil HD on the PS5 today with tank controls. I think the tank control system with the fixed camera angles and the reworked 3D rendered backdrops for the location of the Spencer Mansion is truly masterful how they've done it. The FOV cutscenes are still amazing to look at these days. Did I say FOV? I meant FMV. I am so sorry. But there are so many things that were reworked and redone and revitalized in this game, this remake, that made it the ideal way to play it. Yes, I will admittedly go back and play the original Resident Evil for the cheesy moments such as or
that was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Because, you know, those lines are sort of negated or completely reworked in the remake in a way that I don't really like personally because they are so cheesy and iconic, they sort of need to stay there. Like in RE4 Remake, how Leon still has his iconic bingo line. At the same time though, Resident Evil Remake is the perfect remake in my opinion. It is one of the best, if not the best remake ever made in my opinion. It is what a remake should be, and I really don't think we need a remake of Resident Evil because of the reason that the location, the atmosphere really does work mostly due to the fixed camera angles and the control system. It adds that extra bit of tension, the fear of the unknown behind each frame. It works so beautifully well. I am so glad they kept it for the remake, and to this day, it is a game I revisit so constantly. It is easily my second favorite game in the entire series. Resident Evil Remake is a true and utter masterpiece. So guys, what do you have to say about all the remakes, and where would you rank them on your list? Resident Evil 1 Remake, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. How would you rank them? Where would you rank them from worst to best? Please comment down below, let me know. We here at Critics Play Games want to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. Do look out for my Platinum video coming very, very soon for Resident Evil 4 Remake. I am so excited to provide that to you guys. I am almost done. I'm only a couple trophies away as of the moment of me recording this. I am so close. And while I'm glad to be done with it almost, I will miss this game. Admittedly, I think RE4 Remake is fantastic. I'm truly excited to provide that video to you guys because it's going to be a long one. This is a process, at least the way that I went about it. Either way, guys, as I said, thank you all so much for watching. Look out for more videos coming to Critics Play Games very, very shortly. My name is Patrick Barrow, and this has been Critics Play Games.